making his RP3 and Company debut. It's the host of the State of the Saints podcast, the one and only TJAY Jones. TJ, good morning, brother. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, RP3, man? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you making out the time, bud. All right, so where do we begin? Okay, let's start with where do we begin with this hot mess that was yesterday in Philly? How about rushing? How about rushing defense? This is a team that set the new NFL record for not giving up a 100-yard rusher. Their bread and butter is not getting gashed with the run. And Philly, with its banged-up, awful offensive line, paved the way for 246 yards on the ground. It was the most rushing yards given up since 2014, TJ. What the hell happened with the run defense?
Well, I just think they underestimated the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that the Saints, they smell blood in the water. They looked at all of the press clippings coming out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia's issue with Carson Wentz and allowing Jalen Hurts to get his first start. So they just thought that this team was DOA, dead on arrival. And I think that the Saints thought that they were just going to hop on a plane, head to Philadelphia, and get that dub. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they showed that they're a prideful team. They got a lot to play for, even though they're playing in the NFC's least, as I like to call it. But nevertheless, I mean, they still have an opportunity to try to get a playoff spot. And not to mention, you still have a coach in Doug Peterson, who I feel like some of those guys in the locker room believe in. So the Saints, I mean, they just came out there and they ran into a buzzsaw. And the Philadelphia Eagles showed that they had a lot of pride.
Jalen Hurts made his first start in the NFL in place for Carson Wentz. And, TJ, here's my question. Did Dennis Allen not think that they were going to run the football with Jalen Hurts at quarterback? I mean, anyone that watched tape of him at Alabama or at Oklahoma knows that this guy can run the football extremely well. Did they not game plan to have Jalen Hurts, who went for 106 yards on the ground? Did they not think that he was going to run the football?
See, this is the thing about Dennis Allen. I've noticed a trend. Anytime that Dennis Allen goes up against a young quarterback, he always struggles. So we've seen this earlier in the season versus the Los Angeles Chargers when a young Justin Herbert came to town, out of Oregon. I mean, he lit the Saints up in the first half. He threw 3 touchdowns in the first half. We've seen it last year when the Saints went up against Kyle Allen when he was the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And we've seen it again on yesterday with Jalen Hurts. Dennis Allen does struggle with some of those younger guys. I don't know if it's the fact that he hasn't seen them in an NFL game or he doesn't have enough NFL film on him, but that's no excuse. Dennis Allen has to understand that Jalen Hurts, what he did, like you said, RP3, he was a running quarterback. I mean, he was a guy that can throw the ball, but he used to hurt you with his legs. I mean, you should have seen that. I'm pretty sure he probably seen his fair share of Alabama LSU games when Jalen Hurts was the quarterback for the Crimson Tide.
We're talking with TJAY Jones, State of the Saints podcast host. He joins us here on the Twin Peaks hotline. Another thing that stood out to me was the defense, no sacks, and only hit the quarterback 3 times, TJ. This is an injury-plagued offensive line for the Eagles, one of the worst offensive lines by any metric in the NFL, and the Saints' front seven had no impact whatsoever in this game.
Yeah, that was the most alarming thing to me. I mean, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, that was their 12th offensive line change, okay? They have changed that offensive line 12 different times this season. You had a lot of guys that were, practice squad players, guys that were moved around to shift around, and the Saints could not get to Jalen Hurts. And shame on the Saints. I mean, you have Cameron Jordan, who's an all-pro. You have Trey Hendrickson, who is one of the top leaders in sacks. You have Marcus Davenport coming back. And then also you have David Onyemata, who has been playing really good at the interior line position. So there's really no excuse for the Saints not to get any type of pressure on Jalen Hurts. I mean, in some cases, he was almost able to knit a sweater back there. I mean, how much time that he had. Credit to the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles, really, trying to make sure that they put their best foot forward and making sure that Jalen Hurts is in a position that he can succeed, and he did just that.
TJ, I've said it a lot on this show. Sean Payton is his own worst enemy. because sometimes he gets too cute for it, sometimes he's stubborn, and sometimes his play calling, he just abandons what he knows to work because he wants to call the plays that he wants to call. And they did it again yesterday. They only ran the ball 20 times. Latavius Murray only had 4 carries, TJ. When this team runs the ball 30 times, they win. I've argued for a couple years that they're more built to run block than they are to pass block. And you got a dog like Latavius Murray on that team. I was watching the game yesterday. I was like, did Latavius Murray say something bad about Sean Payton's mama? Because they did not use him. They barely used Alvin Kamara. Why? It just they just abandoned the running game in a close game that could have helped Taysom Hill so much so. They could have helped them so much so. Why does this happen?
I wish I had the answer for you, RP3, but I don't. I do know this. Latavius Murray is very important to the Saints' success going forward. I mean, we saw him in a game versus the Denver Broncos when he rushed for 120 yards, and we saw what he can do if you give him the opportunities. I don't understand why Sean Payton doesn't utilize him more in the offense, trying to get him involved. But every time, his name is called, he answers the bell. And I also found it very alarming that Taysom Hill didn't really run the football as much, from the quarterback position as like he normally does. It seems like he was trying to wait, and play the most, the conventional quarterback role on yesterday. I mean, usually we look at Taysom, he scrambles outside the pocket, when he doesn't find anybody. It seems like to me that Sean Payton wanted him to stay in the pocket and try to, go through his progressions and try to get the ball down the field. And I do agree with what you're saying. Sean Payton definitely is his own worst enemy. And, you have a lot of members of the Who Dat Nation are really upset because they feel like is Sean Payton trying so hard to try to make this Taysom Hill experiment work when you have a guy in Jameis Winston that can do some of the things that Taysom Hill is not doing. I mean, for example, the screen game. I mean, Taysom is throwing rocket balls to Alvin Kamara, is popping up in the air for interceptions. You look at Jameis Winston, a lot of the things that Taysom Hill is struggling with, you put Jameis in, you'll probably have more success. So I don't know what it is about Sean Payton. I mean, sometimes, he gets a little bit stubborn, but that's why we love him sometimes. I mean, that aggression that he has, but sometimes that aggression comes back and bites him in the you-know-what.
Talking with TJAY Jones, host of the State of the Saints podcast. He joins us here on the Twin Peaks Hotline for the Black and Gold Report. TJ, let me ask you this. Taysom Hill, I need more of a sample size. I just do. 4 games is not enough for me. I think, especially with the offseason that everyone had, I think it's a little unfair, and you just need to see more from him. But he had – in each game he's had good moments and he's had bad moments. And yesterday he had some good moments. He was 28 of 38. He was pretty efficient, had 2 touchdown passes. Did have the pick. He was sacked 5 times. The offensive line played like just absolute garbage yesterday. But I go back to that 4th and 2 play, and it just sticks out to me. It's 4th and 2.
Right.
You roll out. My man, Michael Thomas, there's not a defender around him for 8 to 10 yards. He's wide open beyond the first down marker, and Taysom doesn't see him. Once again, I still think it's too early, but we're getting a lot of good and bad with him so far. What did you make of that 4th and 2 call, and what did you make of Taysom's performance overall?
Well, I think he did an okay job, but the thing about it is he has to hold on to the football. Everything that Taysom Hill is doing that's positive is being wiped out because he fumbles the football. I mean, he's turning the ball over at an alarming rate. I know as of right now, I think he has like maybe 10 or 11 turnovers. I mean, he's close to breaking a record that was once held by Aaron Brooks. And I'm going to let you know something. If you're being compared to Aaron Brooks in any way, shape, or form, you don't want to, for the exception of maybe winning a playoff game. But Taysom Hill has to hold on to the football. I mean, that's just the case. I think that he stares guys down way too long. When you go up against some of those elite secondaries, some of those guys like, the Kansas City Chiefs have, you stare them down, they're going to be coming away with the football. Those guys can get turnovers. Taysom Hill holds on to the ball too long. He doesn't go through his reads. He stares down his wide receivers, and that's going to end up costing him. But, I mean, he did an okay job on yesterday, but it gets completely wiped out when you're turning the ball over because nobody's going to remember or anything except for those turnovers that cost the team a victory. So, I mean, it is what it is right now, man. We have to call it a spade, and I think the nickname of Turnover Taysom is well-deserved the way he's playing right now.
Wrapping up our conversation with TJAY Jones, host of the State of the Saints podcast. He joins us here on the Twin Peaks Hotline. All right, TJ. Kansas City now comes to town, the defending Super Bowl champions who now are in the driver's seat for the top seed in the AFC. The Saints, meanwhile, have dropped out of the driver's seat for the top seed in the NFC. How much of a challenge is it going to be for the Saints here this week against the Chiefs, regardless if it's Drew Brees or Taysom Hill?
You know, this is the thing about the Saints. When you think that the Saints are going to lose or there's a strong chance they can get blown out, they always rise to the occasion. And that is the most frustrating thing about being a Saints fan, that you see them go out here and they just put their best foot forward against elite competition. I think the Saints have a strong chance of going up against the Kansas City Chiefs and beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that this is a really good football team. I think they slipped up against Philadelphia. But I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have the Saints' undivided attention. I think they're going to pay attention to details, and I think they're going to have a good showing. And no matter if it's Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, or even Drew Brees, I think that the Saints are going to be very competitive in this game, and I think that they're going to try to show everybody that they can go up against the world champs and give them a lot of trouble. And hopefully they can come out with that victory. It would not surprise me at all. And I'm not saying this because, you know, I'm a Saints fan or being a homer, but it would not surprise me if the New Orleans Saints beat the Kansas City Chiefs because they end up winning games like this. I mean, we've seen it with Tampa Bay, right? Everybody said Tampa Bay was going to beat the Saints. It wasn't going to be close. And all of a sudden the Saints just completely destroyed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on national television. So it would not surprise me if the Saints have one of their best games of the year against the world champs.
TJ, I totally agree with you because they tend to respond that way. I'm actually more worried for the Saints when they take on Minnesota on Christmas Day, but that'll be a discussion for another day because I know the Vikings lost to the Bucs and their kicker, gave up 10 points, but Minnesota always has New Orleans' number, and they're going to be fighting for a playoff berth. They're going to get the best effort from Minnesota. That game scares me more on Christmas Day than this one does on Sunday, brother. Look, man, appreciate your time. Keep up the great work with the State of the Saints podcast, my man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me.